Well, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to the Cal Poly University College of Extended University presentation on high-tech farming, agriculture. We are happy that you're here, and I think you're going to learn a whole lot. And the way it's going to go is, my name is Reese Harris, and I'm going to talk for just a few minutes and share with you what's happening in the world of agriculture, in particular in high-tech ag. All right, so we're going to talk basically through anticipated sales growth in the ag industry, why now is such a good time to get in, and the best way to get started. We're going to talk about agriculture trends, opportunities in hemp and cannabis, and how to get your career launched, either in a career format or as an entrepreneur. Going to talk a little bit about the Cal Poly Farm School, and talk kind of like where the money goes is where there's always opportunity to be revealed, and why there's some major investments in high-tech agriculture happening right now. We're also going to talk a little bit about why veterans have a unique advantage to securing some of the loan opportunities out there, and really how to prepare for the best jobs in agriculture. So welcome those that are on the webinar. It's good to have you with us. At the end, we will do a Q&A. So if you have any questions, we are more than happy to answer them for you, covering the broad spectrum of information that we're going to talk about today. We'll go for about 35 minutes, and then we will open it up to Q&A. All right, so let's kind of go up to 30,000 feet, if you will, and talk about some of the agriculture trends that are happening right now. So, for example, there's 7.5 billion people on the planet today, and by 2050, it's estimated there'll be 9.8. So that's 1.3 billion more mouths to feed, 3 meals a day. That's a lot of food that has to be produced. Problem is the planet has lost a third of its arable land in the last 40 years. So not only do we have a higher demand on agriculture, but we've also got a shrinking support mechanism, which is the ground that it's been grown in. This is largely due to, in many cases, poor soils management and also climate change. So that's kind of what's happening on the macro level. It's estimated by the UN Food and Ag Organization that the world is going to need to grow 50% more food by 2050. That's a massive amount of food, and that's why when you think about agriculture as an opportunity industry, it's these macroeconomic elements that really identify why it is that way and why so much investment money is flowing into agriculture right now. So then we've got COVID-19. Agriculture, fortunately, is, and probably obviously, is an essential business, but undoubtedly, every step of the food journey is in transformation. Every single step along, from the growing of the leafy greens or whatever, all the way down to that food, however packaged, is getting into the home. So it's through the entire supply chain is in transformation. So for example, here's a recent article. I love to find these things, because here's a recent article in the Washington Post about farming, getting, from the farm to your table. But where this article was posted was not in some agriculture or, food section of the Washington Post. It was in the technology section of the Washington Post. That's what's interesting, because when you have a revolution, if you will, in an industry or major transformation, you're often going to see technology lead the way. So here's another example. You've got Tony Robbins. You're not only going to see large investments in a particular industry, but you're going to see, a lot of superstars that are going to get behind it as well. And he's part of the what's called Prime Movers Lab investment company, and he's invested in a small upstart called Upward Farms. It's an aquaponic vertical farm in Brooklyn. So this is what's cool to see, is when you start seeing, the media and the big players get into this industry, the industry is on fire. Here's another sort of telltale sign. So currently our Agriculture Secretary, Sonny Perdue, back in June, so just a month and a half ago or so, he made, and this is a lot of words, but it's really important that you kind of look at what he said. He said, with this growing world population and the need to do more with less, we're already driving innovation in agriculture. But this is the core part of what he said. But the coronavirus pandemic added to the urgency. It has exposed the fragility of the nation's food supply chain, cut into trade forecasts, and illustrated the limitations of how America's producers have always done things. That's, point blank why agriculture is such an important thing to get into right now. Now let's take a little bit more, let's zoom down into more on the surface level, if you will, what these agriculture and in particular the high-tech trends are all about. So for example, and I'm just going to go through a list here, you've got microbial farming, which is basically your subterranean agriculture. You've got hyper-precision agriculture, and hyper-precision agriculture is kind of interesting. It's really taking the whole growing process and boiling it down to how do you manage every single aspect of it to the highest degree of profitability and control. And that's where ag is moving into, with the demands for a return on some of these high dollar investments. You've got satellite imagery, which is helping to lead to hyper precision agriculture management. You've got biologicals, which is an emerging option for pest control and nutrient management. Robotics, what a cool industry for robotics, because, for a whole number of reasons. We'll talk about this a little bit more in just a minute. But with the improved GPS and self-learning machinery, robotics is really taking on a whole new meaning. And wasn't it Elon Musk just launched some rocket up with a whole bunch of new satellites, and he said, your GPS will be noticeably better, is what he said. And I thought, well, isn't that cool from the standpoint of managing your fields and, being able to understand how your fields are growing, where the strengths and weaknesses, you can see how water's flowing through them. And you've got agriculture drones. The market for agriculture drones is supposed to grow annually by over 30% this year, which is pretty astounding, but drones are taking on a whole new, adding a whole new dimension to managing agriculture. You've got a sensor revolution, which are these tiny needle-sized sensors they insert into plant leaves that monitor the fluid between cells. Is that crazy? And of course, you've got artificial intelligence for better monitoring and forecasting and for decision making. You've got the blockchain. Blockchain to me is something that's sort of a quiet revolution that's happening on a lot of different levels. We think of blockchain, from a currency standpoint, but blockchain is more than that. It's really this transparent ledger that allows you to manage and track things completely transparently. Now, how does blockchain work in agriculture? Well, very simply, it's being able to transparently track where a head of lettuce, say, is grown, the row and the field, all the way to your table. So if, for example, there's something the matter with that, you can track it all the way back to the farm and the field and the row and uncover what may have led to a head of lettuce going bad, for example. You've got the Internet of Things. I mean, this is part of our life. We're starting to see it in our homes, is the monitoring of every aspect of agriculture for a faster response. Then, of course, there's sustainable agriculture practices. This is a whole industry into itself, and it's another emerging option for pest control, for nutrient management, but just a better option for managing, say, organic farms. You've got lab-grown plant meat. I don't know about you, but I love my Impossible Burgers. I cannot tell the difference when I cook them myself. You can go to Carl's Jr. and get yourself one. They're becoming ubiquitous. They're selling them at Costco, and they're delicious. It's just insane how you can make a hamburger, cook, smell, and work just like a regular burger. Then there's self-driving harvesting systems, which is basically self-driving tractors. I was traveling down the freeway near my home and saw one just, as part of, the road work that they're doing on the freeway, for managing some of the, the shrubbery along the freeway. I thought that's crazy to see a self-driving tractor, but these are found in large fields, of course, and in other areas, particularly in indoor agriculture systems. And then finally, data integration. Now, data is huge in managing this precision agriculture aspect. So there's a ton of data that comes into the whole growing and supply chain process. And so Microsoft, with their Azure FarmBeats, and Taranis, and with their AgriBrain systems, are merging to provide actionable data, instant updates, machine learning insights, and all kinds of other things that are happening in this data. So I guess what I'm really wanting to point out is there are so many areas of opportunity in agriculture, in particular in the high-tech side of things. But here's kind of an interesting story. This farmer in the Midwest was struggling and had been struggling for years to find a way that he could kill pigweed, which is a notorious problem in the Midwestern farms, without having to use a lot of pesticides and herbicides and other things. So what he discovered is if you cut the pigweed in between the farm rows with a mower over and over again, you will eventually kill the pigweed. The pigweed will give up. So what he created was a pigweed weeding robot. He calls it the broadleaf weeding bot. And it senses the depth of which the mower needs to mow. It's got a GPS on it. It's completely automated. This thing can run 24/7. Well, he invented this thing in his garage, right? So here's an amazing opportunity that somebody created. Now he's already raised $500,000 of angel investment, and he's pushing for an $8 million round this fall. So these are where the opportunities lie. It doesn't always have to be Microsoft driving some big, huge thing. It could be any number of things. One of my favorites is indoor farming. I love indoor farming. I love the whole thing that indoor farming represents. What's interesting about indoor farming is that in many cases for certain leafy greens, for certain crops, indoor farming is on par with the cost, on a cost basis, with field farming. And the reason being is because field farming, you've got wage inflation, you've got the rising costs of water, rising costs of pesticides, herbicides, and so forth. So this is kind of interesting that indoor farming, with such a huge upfront capital expenditure, is now on par cost-wise with field farming in many cases. So things about indoor farming, some of the benefits: you can grow year-round. You can have a greater yield. Some of these field farms may have 6 or 8 turns. You may have double that indoors, because you can manage the growing process so much more accurately and so much more with so much greater intent. And what that does is it again reduces the costs. You've got the building these indoor farms locally in the urban areas, for example. You're now providing fresh leafy greens, high quality produce in these areas, in urban areas that don't have access to that kind of quality food. You've got, not to mention these farms in the urban areas are literally the new age of indoor industrial manufacturing. In the past, in the old days, it was tire manufacturers and so forth. Nowadays, it's indoor farming. Now, of course, indoor farming uses a lot less water usage. That's also true for many of us have worked in indoor greenhouses and so forth, where you can, in the NFT channels, the whole hydroponic, hydro-organic systems, how you can really control the water usage tremendously. Indoor farming, in many cases, 0 fertilizer, 0 pesticides. Isn't that pretty awesome when you're getting a product that's, completely organic? Even though it may not be certified organic, it is certainly organic from the standpoint of how it's grown. And the other cool thing about indoor farming is that elements like weather, bad weather, drought, floods, these are not factors in the indoor growing environment. Here's some examples of what indoor farming can look like. You've got the HighCube on the left. You've got AeroFarms, which is the horizontal. Obviously, AeroFarms has done some tremendous work working with Goldman Sachs back in the East Coast. You've got here's an example of Plenty, which is in the West Coast. They do a vertical solution, again, with artificial lighting, again, on a huge scale. I read that there's I believe it's AeroFarms is building something like a 90,000 square foot facility in Abu Dhabi or in Dubai, somewhere in the Emirates area, where this is a completely they're not growing a whole lot of leafy greens out in the deserts in that part of the world, but indoors they're growing an amazing amount of food and produce. Here's one called the Sahara Forest Project, again featured in Mashable, which is a tech publication. Isn't that interesting? You know, these indoor farms are being viewed as high tech by all the high tech media, which I think is, you know, a pretty amazing thing. Now, you know, here we've got another situation, you know, back up to, you know, the higher level, looking down on things. You know, Roundup, the Bayer owns Roundup now, and they just recently are going to have to pay over $10 billion to settle cancer lawsuits. Well, you know, when you've got that kind of a situation happening, the high cost of field farming is going to go up because, you know, these herbicides and pesticides are going to be less favorable. Evidently, Roundup is, you know, a probable human carcinogen, as noted by the World Health Organization back in 2015. I mean, this happened. This lawsuit or this resulting result from the lawsuit was June 24th of this year. But here's one last thing that I just want to point out is, and this is something that I think is really interesting. The average age of an American farmer in particular is 58 years old. Very high when it comes to the average age in any particular industry. The average age of most industries is probably in their 40s, but in farming, it's much, much higher. And what that means is that farmers are going to be cycling out. They are going to be retiring, right? They're getting tired. They've been doing this career their whole life. That's another reason why it's a great time to get into farming. Now, the beginning farmer right now is 47 years old. That's a farmer with less than 5 years experience. But again, the greater macro statistic is the American farmer, 58 years old. They're going to be cycling out. That makes a lot of room for new beginning farmers. Here's just a sort of a mashup of different companies that are out there doing some pretty amazing things. You've got Vertical Harvest there on the right. They've got some really amazing indoor vertical farming solutions. You've got Plenty on the left, that the purple one, that's led by the Bright Agritech guys and Nate Story and all the people that are working with Plenty. They're doing some incredible things, as well as, let's say, Vertical Green Technologies there at the top, and Bowery and Gotham Greens. I mean, these are all companies that are really, really on fire. You've got Illumitex, which is the manufacturer of the lighting. Well, what's interesting about lighting, and part of the reason the indoor farming has become so affordable, is because the lighting, which is one of the most expensive parts of the whole process, has not only become cheaper to buy, but cheaper to use. So here's another mashup of different companies that are in this new age of high-tech agriculture. I mentioned this, a couple on this page. Down at the bottom, you see right in the middle, Urban Ag News. It's a great news organization to just track if you're wanting to find out what's happening in the world of high-tech agriculture. At the top, you've got Agritech, another great organization that's providing some really transparent information about what's happening in the industry. Another good one is what's called Morning Ag Clips, if you're not familiar with it. This is from June 18th, stating that organic fresh produce sales are continuing double-digit growth. You know, let's look at from PMG, which is an organization that tracks these things. Here we are. As of June 21st, look at the size of the growth of the demand on all of these different agriculture products. You know, as of 3/21, that's pretty normal, you know, between -3 and +6. I mean, it kind of bounces around. But now we're up to 63%, 30%, 32%. I mean, it's really incredible. I was just reading in Bloomberg today, there was an article about how the demand for meat has decreased. And we're starting to see a shift in the way people are looking at leafy greens and good quality agriculture products. In other words, it's a great time to be in agriculture. I suffice it to say, I might be biased, but I really do believe this is a great time to be in agriculture. So with that, I want to introduce Tony Latner. He's the Director of Education for the Cal Poly University School of Education, Extended Studies, Archie's Institute. So welcome, Tony.
Hi, Reese. Thanks for the introduction.
Take it away. Tell us what you can tell us about the industry more on the more micro level, if you will.
Yeah, and just a short background. I currently work with Cal Poly, but I also work on a farm in Escondido that does hemp, tomatoes, basil, and currently bell peppers. So that's my background a little bit with that. Some of the opportunities that we're seeing is leafy greens are always a great opportunity, and that's just for the sheer fact that it's a very perishable product that doesn't ship very well. So a lot of my past students, when they have gone into the sector, they usually go greens first because you're getting a high turnover probably every 4 to 6 weeks compared to say if you get avocados, you're going to get crops, product only once or twice a year. One of the newer things that's been brought online is the USDA approved industrial hemp for production in 2018. So I'm having a lot of students that came through looking into industrial hemp. One of the main products that growers will use industrial hemp for is to make CBD oil, which is a pretty popular product now. An example of what a hemp grower can get for their product is usually around $30 per pound. And so it's a great way to have a small scale farm and make a profit right out of the gate. Bloomberg put out this article, I think just a few days ago, about how cannabis and the demand has increased since the pandemic started. And if cannabis is not your cup of tea, that's irrelevant for the fact that as a business person, an entrepreneur, you're looking for the opportunities. And this is something that hemp, cannabis, leafy greens, and specifically organic are in demand right now. And organic specifically because as an organic grower, it's a lot tougher to grow your product, but the margins are a lot better. An example, if you're doing bell peppers conventionally, the grower will get about $1.25 per pound. If you're doing it organically, it's $3.50 a pound. Same product, just grown in a different way. Now, the two issues that entrepreneurs that want to get into the sector run into, the first one is the education piece, and that's the knowledge to know what to do. And then there's the funding piece, the capital, because you don't want to use your own cash even if you do have it. So where is the money at? The first with the education piece, Archie's Acres, Archie's Institute specifically, has been teaching organic sustainable farming for at least 12 years now. We partnered up with Cal Poly Pomona about 6 years ago. And so what that allows us to do is that any person that does decide to take advantage of the program, they earn credits through Cal Poly, but if veterans are involved, you are able to use your GI Bill. Now, one of the things that the students tend to be shocked by when they do start the education piece is the entrepreneurial focus of the program. We like to say we're a business school that happens to deal in the ag world because the business part, you need to be able to understand and run your cash flow, your P&L statements, your balance sheet, if you are going to run any type of ag business, whether it's farming or you decide you want to fly drones. So that's something that the program does hit, on the head. When the program was started, I believe around 13 years ago, it was started by Colin and Karen Archerplay for the sheer fact that Colin was getting out of the Marine Corps, wanted to start a farm, and realized after he started his farm on 2.5 acres that he can make a pretty good profit off of a very small footprint. He was making around $40,000 net on 5,000 square foot greenhouse. And so he decided that being that this can be a living, he wanted to teach other veterans how this can work in civilians too. And so they started a program on their farm, which will be on the next slide here, which there's 2 greenhouses there. There's the small, which is close to you, and the large, which is farther away. The closer one to you is around 1,000 square feet, and the farther one is around 5,000 square feet. These together net about 60K plus, and that's after paying a salary. And so something that between Archie's Acres, the farm, the Institute, and Cal Poly, they create a program which has 2 formats right now. It's a 6-week immersive, and then we have the 12-week. These originally were done on the farm with lab hours, but currently with the pandemic, it's gone online, which has kind of created an opportunity for people who aren't local that do want to step into the sector to complete the program. Now, a lot of students who are coming through right now want to still get the hands-on, which we completely allow. It just depends if you're close by or not. If you're local, you can definitely get your lab hours or just do a farm visit. But it's not something that being with the pandemic right now, being online is something that has opened doors. And I would say half our students now currently are not local. Some of the things that the students come through to get in the end is you will get certificates from Cal Poly, from the Institute, but the capstone of the program is for the student or the budding entrepreneur is to present their business plan to a panel. And that's mainly to get feedback on the plan itself and what can be adjusted. And then to create a network for these future growers to kind of start with the venture that they are doing. It's something that the certificates are important, but I think the biggest thing that students walk away from is the network and the education piece. Now, there are going to be a few pictures here of the style of growing that's done on the farm. Most of the growing techniques are through hydro, so there's no soil involved. And the reason that they do this is, number one, the yield you get per year in hydro compared to soil is almost double. Example, if you're doing basil in soil, you get about 7 turns a year. If you do it in hydro, you get about 17. And as a business person, this is important because that's going to be your net profit in the end. And so it's something that we do teach soil growing, but ideally hydro is the way that we kind of set the example because it allows you to grow a lot of produce or product in a very small footprint. It's also with the agribusiness part of it. This is just a few pictures of the students. We usually run a class between, I would say, 8 and 15. We try not to put too many students in the class for the sheer fact we want to keep the ratio of teacher to student as small as we can. These are a few images. We had a hemp workshop on the farm about a year ago. These are students in their lab. And then one of the key points too is when these students do get done with the program, they've got the education piece, and so now they need to figure out the funding piece. I got my idea, I got feedback, I was told it's a great idea, how do I launch this? And it's something that the program, along with Cal Poly and the USDA, have put these entrepreneurs at a good spot because they have access to federal loans at a subsidized interest rate. An example is that with the 6-week program, the USDA sees it as a year's worth of experience, and that allows you to qualify or at least apply to a few of their loans. They have an operations loan, which is for any operating expense outside of buying land, and then they have farm ownership loan, which is to buy land. The operations loan, which can pay for a greenhouse, can pay for a salary, work truck, etc. Those interest rates right now are below 2%. And if you've had any type of loan, 2% is free money. And that loan can go up to $400,000. They have a micro loan, which is under $50,000, but you will be able to apply for loans up to $400K for operating expenses. The ownership loan, which requires 3 years of experience. For veterans, you get 1 or 2 years from your time in service, and you get that 3rd year with us. We've had students use that loan to actually buy farms, and currently that is up to $500,000. On a side note, if you do, or if you are able to use your VA home loan, I would definitely check the rates and compare them. Currently, the rates for the USDA's farm ownership loan are around 3%. So you want to check if it's maybe a better deal to go with the VA. So some of the things that the students are doing once they leave the program, some decide, well, I'm not quite ready to farm yet. We do have a program with USAID, which is a program where they'll send the graduates to third world countries to help start farms. Example here, Michael Driver went to Guyana and he helped the locals there start a farm, not only to feed themselves, but to sell and make cash flow. So it's something that whether you're deciding that I do want to launch my farm, or I need to become more educated, or I just want to find a job, we try to put you in the right track and basically assist you once you leave. Because for us, the relationship starts once you graduate. Here's a few students. Top left there, they started a farm. I think they were doing basil. Bottom left, Fermented Harvest was a probiotic drink company that was started. Eat Fresh Go was a vending machine that was selling fresh fruit and salads. And then the bottom right, Miss Lobby there, she started a greenhouse. I believe it was in Colorado, doing primarily herbs. Some other students here that have come through. We've had, I believe, around 75 classes since 2000, I believe 10. It's one of those things that we definitely see it as a family once you graduate. One of the things that some students worry about is, well, how do I pay for the tuition of the school? The tuition of the school is $4,500, and that runs around $230 to $240 per credit. Most of the students will use their GI Bill if they have access to that, but there's also funds that we can apply for if you are underemployed or unemployed. And then there are a few grants available through CCOF is a big player in that realm. Also, Farmer Veteran Coalition. And so it's something that we definitely work with you to find your way to get into the class. We currently started a class this Monday, and enrollment's going to stay open until Monday. If you do decide you want to join a class that's already started. And then we have our last class of the year starting October 5th for the day. And then we have the nights, which is August 25th. Now, the day class is 6 weeks long. We meet Monday, Friday, 09 through Zoom. And then the nights meets on Tuesday night at 6 p.m. through Zoom. Now, once 2021 starts, we'll probably go back into having classes back on the campus. And so if you're not local, there's definitely a short window of how to get in the program before the year ends. Now, if you are going to use your GI Bill, the VA has cleared all veterans who are on the GI Bill who are taking online classes. If you have it available, you still get full BAH while you're in the program. This is in contrast to before. If you were taking an online class, your BAH has been cut in half, I believe, because it's an online course. Well, currently through the end of the year, the VA is still paying full BAH until, I believe, January 1st. And so definitely a double check on that. And then if there are any other questions or you want to get a consultation with anybody on the staff here to get some more information about the farm and the school, Reese will step in here in a second, and you can schedule an appointment. You can do a half hour. If it goes over a half hour, it's fine. Or if you feel like you're ready to go, you can definitely sign up for the class. And so I think, Reese, I'll let you go ahead and take over now.
All right. Thank you, Tony. That was a great amount of information. Just to reiterate, next steps, if you're interested to learn more, if you want to, there's lots of information at the website, but there's also a way to get started if you think this is going to be something you'd like to tackle. You know, you've had a dream to either start a farm, be a part of a farm. To my way of thinking, the two things that Tony touched on, I'm actually a graduate of the class. I can tell you it is definitely challenging. It's I learned so much, but one thing that was really exciting about it is the entrepreneurial aspect of it. So there's all the biology and you know all the aspects of how a farm works, but there's also the piece where you actually have to come up with a business and a business plan, and you present that business to an audience of local professionals, which is such a cool thing to do. It's a great opportunity to really spread your wings like that. It's also a great opportunity if you've got an idea, or maybe you've got a farm already that you want to take to the next level, or any number of different combinations in between. Let's say, for example, you wanted to grow tomatoes because you want to, package up a hot sauce, which is what several of our graduates have done. So, here's how you do it. Well, you've got not only the biology aspect of it, you've got the entrepreneurial aspect of it, but the cool thing is that you also, at the end, with your certification, have access to the money and the loan money that'll allow you to get the whole vision that you have for yourself and your business off the ground. So it's like the full step-by-step process that allows you to have the success that you would want. So more questions can be answered. We're going to answer any of your questions here in just a moment. But certainly go to archiesinstitute.com. Again, we are part of Cal Poly Pomona, probably the finest ag school, one of them in the world, if you will, certainly in the country. And we are a part of Cal Poly Pomona. Your sign-up process will involve getting signed up through Cal Poly. But before, if you're if you have questions about the program and questions about, all kinds of things, we're happy to, answer those for you. You can sign up for a 30-minute free consultation by just scheduling an appointment at your convenience. Kind of a cool little thing. that we set up just to help you out if you have any things that you need to cover. All right, so Tony, you're still on the line. Let's open it up to Q&A. So if anyone has a question about high-tech agriculture, if you have a question about, you know, the future of agriculture and why this is such a good time to get into the world of agriculture. You know, we think of agriculture as, you know, sort of we take it for granted. You know, you go to the grocery store and it's full of, you know, produce. It's full of all those delicious things. We don't think that there's, you know, we don't often think that there's quite a process to get it there. But we also often don't think that this is a great time to get into that industry. It's really an exciting time to get in. And so whether it's high-tech ag, whether it's, you know, supply chain questions you might have, or, you know, some of the companies and what they're doing that's interesting, some of the funding that's coming on down the pipe, or maybe it's more on the entrepreneur side. You know, what's the course like? What's the, you know, the entrepreneurial aspect of it like? To me, the entrepreneurial aspect made the whole program fun. I have to say, I had a blast, and it was mainly because I had always had a vision for a high-tech agriculture product. And so that's what I've been working on. And I'm not ready to bring it to the public for public consumption, but I'm still working on it. It's been a labor of love, and it's born out of the course that I took through Archie's Institute. So also on the website, you can, if you scroll to the bottom, you can, there's a contact us. You can send us an email if there's, you know, if you're interested in doing it that way. And then finally, on the website, there is a video. It's about 30 minutes, and it was produced by the Tribeca Film organization that is quite a prominent movie production company. And they came out to the farm and spent like 3 or 4 months filming and tracking on students that were going through the program, many of which were military. And you know how their life was transformed, and that's exemplified in this 30-minute video, and you can find that at the Archie's Institute .com website. It's just a great video. You know, it's so fun to watch the stories of how these individual students went from, in their case, you know, fighting in Iraq and in Afghanistan to, you know, coming all the way full circle to, you know, creating a farm, you know, just because it was a vision, and how farming is such a natural thing for, you know, a lot of people. It's a really fun way to create a great lifestyle and, you know, support your community and support your family as well. Tony, what are your thoughts? I'm just curious, you know, when you think about some of the opportunities in agriculture and in the whole world of, you know, how things are changing, particularly with the coronavirus, have you seen any changes as far as high-tech ag is concerned?
Definitely in the realm of not growing food, there's a lot more businesses popping up, software for farmers. We had one student do a business plan on flying drones for farmers to find heat signatures, which can tell the farmer what's going on with the plants. And so a lot of businesses around the services for farmers, not necessarily growing alone. So whether you decide that you want to grow food or help those who grow food, there's definitely opportunity there. And I believe that they said the people that got rich during the gold rush were not the miners, they were the people selling the shovels.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I think one of the things that was so illuminating for me when I went through the course is there's these, you know, opportunities to go to other farms and, you know, go to some of the supply chain elements here in San Diego, and to go to what's it called downtown, where it's like a place where all the, you know, all the produce is bought and sold either on a local level or worldwide. And, you know, it's like you're in the Chicago Board of Trade. You know, it's like TV monitors everywhere. There must have been 300 TV monitors, and everyone's tracking the price of some individual, you know, particular produce element that's, you know, flowing through, you know, the supply chain worldwide. And it was just the most fascinating experience to see. You know, like I said, we take for granted how our food lands on our plate at the dinner table, but to really truly understand it, that's one thing that I really enjoyed about the course, was just to get a whole nother level of knowledge about the world of agriculture. It was fascinating.